Okay, so I'm going to show you guys how to use the modular dock system. We're going to take pieces that made this dock and we're going to make another one out of it. So I'm going to show you guys the process that I do to make this. So first of all, we want to, I'm just going to grab one of these tiles here since I'm looking at this, and I'm just going to copy that tile. Then I'm going to go create a new scene. And we'll call this docks demo. And then we want to give it probably an ocean background. You can generate your own ocean backgrounds with Dungeon Draft or other things. I'm just going to go ahead and pick my generic ocean background here. So I'll go into my towns module, into maps, wilderness, go into terrains. And I have ocean and sand terrains. And I'm going to grab this generic ocean piece here. I like my vision to not be limited for outside scenes like this. We'll save it. And then I'm going to go back into this scene. Notice if I go to it, I think I want my docks to be a little bit bigger than this. And since this just stretches, I'm going to change the dimensions here to something more like 4,000 by 4,000. And you'll see it's made my dimensions bigger, but the tile is still the same. Now I'm going to paste that other tile that I grabbed into here. Why did I do that? Well, I just, when I click on it, it gets me to the path for all of my other tiles. Now, normally I would use Molinet to build, but I'm showing you guys how to use the tile picker to do this. So if I open that again and I just copy that path, I just hit Control C. Then if I go into my tile picker, and if I paste that path into the top here, it takes me to all the assets that I'm going to be using here. So I'm not going to try to put down any sand or anything here. This is just going to be a straight just water and dock components. So I'm using the, there's a module called Quick Scale, and I'm using that to basically scale this up, and I just want it to cover all of the blue there. I'm going to use DF Architect when I'm done to optimize everything. And this isn't going to be a scene that can handle a very large ship. We'll just do a very small ship in this case. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to paste it again because I want to cover some surface area, because I think what I want to do is put a building on here. And yeah, that looks pretty good. And then I probably will do one of these too, just to make the dock kind of interesting. I'm going to put one of these in, and then I'm going to mirror it. So if I double click on it, I want the shorter edge. So that would be this edge. I'm going to put -800, and that will essentially mirror that tile. So now I've got a nice little outlet that this dock comes out to. And maybe I want to, for some reason, put it down here. And notice I'm operating mostly at 150 DPI. That's how these were designed, but with these dock pieces, you can resize them quite a bit. So, feel free to do that. Okay, so now I want to build the dock coming out with a bit of concrete first. So I'm going to build that out there. And then I'm probably going to want some kind of segue between these two pieces. So I'll put in a little staircase here. Try to line it up. Actually, I think what I'll do is I'm going to expand this out. Pull this piece in. Notice that lines up really nicely. I'm going to go above and below a lot. That means this will just snap into place. Copy this piece over to here. To pull that across. There we go. Put another couple of these in. And you'll notice I don't use prefabs for all this stuff. I could have tried to build prefab walls in, but I found it's just a lot easier and faster to build when you're just working with tiles. These are all just, you don't have to worry about levels. You don't have to worry about other things. You're just building. And then there's actually relatively few walls the way that I do these. So the walling part really isn't that big of a deal. And of course, you can have anything hang off the side of the map. Players won't see it, so I could have used a longer piece there. This will all get trimmed off. It doesn't really matter. And maybe I'll have this be the termination point. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. See how they don't quite line up? You just want to be able to hide those endpoints underneath there. Let's see how this looks. For this piece, I need another one, so I'm just going to paste another one right under it. And I like how this ends up creating these sort of designs. This ends up looking like how it varies up the, everything, I think, in a good way. So notice what I've done here is I've kind of started with my concrete. That's going to sit on top of everything else, right? So my concrete is essentially sort of done at this point. Now, I might actually add a couple of egress points here. Oops, that's not a stair. Let's do this one. And another thing I need to look at and pay attention to, and I might actually change my scene config to do this, is when you're building it, it tends to be helpful to make these a little bit darker, your grid lines. So I'm going to save that. Now you can see how tokens are going to move through the space. So here I've got, the staircase is kind of sitting in a half space. So that may mean that I want to adjust this a little bit. See, so now it's got a perfectly, perfect square there. And that means I'm going to adjust all of these just a little. And the rest of these. And I'm looking at this. I like that sitting in two squares like that. Looks good. And that's good. Yeah, I'll add one more here. Okay, now I'm going to start working on my wood. So let's grab a couple of these. Again, I'm at 150. Drag this over to here, and I'm going to send this to the back. That tucks in nicely. And I'll grab another one that looks slightly different. I want to pay attention to where my players will end off on their squares. So maybe I want that to go about that far, and that one right there. Send this one to the back. Good. Of course, I need an egress point there, so I'm going to grab this staircase. Send it to the front and just duplicate it. Put this one, should make them, maybe I'll make them both over here. There we go. Notice if I drag this out, I've got this bench there. I can just hide it if I push this in. Okay, and this is a nice little place, it looks like, for maybe boats to come up. Maybe I want to have just an extra dock here. And again, I'm looking at my squares to make sure my players can go onto the dock. Okay. And for over here, probably want some more dock area. Maybe this one's going to be a different type of dock. Maybe I'll do this. Oh, here, instead of, I'm actually going to flip this one. I'm going to flip it on its shorter edge. And you can see what that does is it makes sure that the shadow is falling on either side and that there's no shadow here. I'll show you why I did that here in just a second. Send these to the back. Okay, so this is a nice thin dock that's going to run along the perimeter here. Sometimes you have to move stuff out of the way. And I want my shadows to be on that side. So I'll flip this one. Okay. And now I think I want to have be a longer dock coming out from here. Notice these poles can generally line up with each other, although I want to be on a perfect square here, so I'm going to go ahead and do it that way. And then maybe this dock has sort of multiple things coming off of it. This is where I can put a bunch of dinghies and rowboats and that kind of thing. You can really make these things spider out in lots of different ways. Maybe I'll add another couple smaller docks over here. Okay, 1 square is perfect. And I feel like maybe I want a lighthouse sitting out here. So if I look up lighthouse, I see this multi-story lighthouse that's already pre-built. So I'm going to go ahead and use that. Before I drop that in though, I'm going to use a special macro. And it's this levels preset. And what it does is it creates all of these preset floors. And I'm going to drop my lighthouse in here. And I'll re-engage and let's see. Yeah, there's all my lighthouse levels. Got a little flag waving on the top. Of course, I have to connect that up somehow. So maybe I will, if I grab one of these assets, specifically this asset here, this is just a base for a tower, but I'm just going to grab its path and I'll go back into my, close this and reopen it. And I'm going to put that path in here and it takes me to all these other bases. The reason I want to use these bases is I like these natural bases here. I like this like square base. It's like the tower was built on a rock that was sort of a rocky sort of island just sort of off the coast. It was naturally planted there. And then I want to weigh to my tower here. So let's go back into one of these. Let's just grab one of these guys. Grab this big one. And I'll send this one to the back, and I'll send this to the back again. And now essentially what I've done is I've created a walkway to get over to this lighthouse here. Okay, it's looking pretty good. Now, what I want in maybe one of these areas is a building. So let's see what kind of class 2 buildings I have loaded. All right, so I've got a tavern here. Let's use that. Okay, there's our tavern. This is a 3-story tavern. And that looks pretty good. So players will disembark from their ships and they'll have a tavern to access. Now I probably need some lighting here. So let's look up street lamps. And we'll drop a couple of these in. And these have lights already attached to them. So these will turn on automatically when you pass a certain light threshold. And you can place them wherever you want by holding down Shift. You can get them really exactly where you want. I'm just going to kind of place them there for now. And then I probably want some torches. So I have animated torches from the Gorgon. These you can hold Shift down, you can put an animated torch down there. If you don't want the performance hit though, I've got regular torches, just this wood torch. I'm holding down Shift to put it where I want to. And again, these have lights attached to them, so they'll come on at night. I'm just going to light these individual docks. And maybe there's a light over here. I also have this metal torch. Kind of stands on its own little metal mounting. Put that over there. Seems like an obvious place for a torch. Holding down Shift and rotating it where I want to. And we'll put in one more here. That's good for now. Okay, now we probably want to add a little bit of clutter. You have a lot of options. Just within the docks set itself, you've got a few options. You've got quite a bit more in the rest of the system. So I'm 150 DPI, and I'm going to drag in some clutter. Oops, that's Z value is probably hiding it underneath everything. And you can resize these things as always. I'm going to scale this up just a bit, put it up to the top, and then I'm going to mirror this. There we go. Makes it look nice and full. There's a lot on there. I've got some fishing equipment. Looks good. And maybe there's some more clutter up here. These are great for when you're having battles and you can create some tactical elements like this. Often what I'll do when I get to walling, I'll show you how I do it. I'll do some special walls around there. And then there's some other things that you can sort of tactically add. In this case, let's see. Maybe I want to have like a canal here. I'm not quite sure how I want to do it yet. Not sure I like this yet, so we'll see how it comes together. It doesn't quite join, but I think I'm okay with that. Players won't really notice that kind of thing. This doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, so I'm going to adjust this. That looks better. And what this will look like if I put a player down. Is the player will just see that there's a bridge there. And so let's do this too. See what I can do to get all these to the back. I think I'm okay, happy with that. Now I've got some canals and some walkways there as well. Another thing I'll show you is how to add some elevation changes. So if you go up from docks, you have all these different sort of tactical elements here. If I go into elevations, I have a bunch of different elevations. You'll see some of these are called elevation short, and some of them are called elevation tall. And so the shorts go with the shorts and the talls go with the talls. But I'll just show you like how these work. And maybe there's some sort of elevation change here. Oops, I want to be set to 100. Okay, and I've got 3 squares. And I think this is my short inside curve. And you can see the illusion that it establishes is that this is now a higher elevation than what's below it. And when you look at docks and how they're built, a lot of times for flooding reasons, there's things that are built up a little bit higher. And since my establishment here is set up on its own little pad, I thought maybe this would be an appropriate place to have some elevation change. I also have something from the bridge set called a tower. And I just like it because it's a good, like, sort of guard tower type of thing. And you can see the egress is here. And so it can effectively, sit on a, directly on something like this. Maybe in this case, I want to rotate it. And it's just sort of, established building that is, sort of built into and hanging off of the dock itself. You can see it's got a roof on it and everything, so it works. Okay, so we've got a lighthouse, we've got a little guard tower, we've got an inn and tavern. Let's go ahead and add some boats. In this case, so I've got a couple of boats already as prefabs, and we can certainly drag those out. There's a little rowboat. Here's a barge, usually more for carrying and ferrying things, maybe on a river or something like that, but we'll put our barge in here. And we will put our rowboat over here. And let's say we want to add more stuff though. So I'm going to open up Molinet. open up my tile browser. And because I'm a Tom Kartos subscriber, and Tom has lots of stuff in Molinet Cloud, I'm just going to look up boat, and I find all of Tom's stuff here. And let's see, I don't remember what he sets these at, but I'm going to have this go ahead and add a drop shadow. I'm going to use 150 DPI and see how it looks, if it's the right scale. And that's pretty good. It gives me, you know, essentially one square in the middle or two across. Maybe I'll drop one of those boats there. When it comes to boats, you want them to be a little bit varied, right? They're all from different places, different woods, that sort of thing. Some of these probably wouldn't fit as well as others. You can see Tom has quite a few options here. Some of these are probably pretty big. Give it a second to download. Yeah, here's a junk boat. Maybe I just pull that off of the scene just a little bit, just to show that there's a larger boat there. And I kind of like some of these little trading boats. Put that on there as well. Of course, I also have sounds. So if I go to my sound thing and I make a sound beacon here, I'm going to make it the entire length, and I'm going to call this, see, this is a global sound. Not going to have volume easing, but we're going to keep it low. And at night, I want the sound to go away. And we'll find a path. So I'm in my sounds module, going to my sounds, and I'll do some searches like sailing ambiance. And if we find our player, you can hear that sailing ambiance now kind of filling the space. Okay, so we've got mostly everything done. A couple of things I might do here. You can always sort of grab all of your, or change all of your walls to be able to allow sound through, in case you didn't want that to be a global sound. What I'm going to do is just start walling this off. So I want these walls to essentially go up 4 feet from 0, from infinity. Don't want them to restrict sound. I'll update my wall. Now that I've got that, I'm going to go to my wall copy tool. I'm going to hold down Control, and I'm going to start just tracing around my walls. Some of you may want to wall off these. I don't. I figured players can fall in the water, or if they go in the water, I can pull them back, or they can pull themselves back. And I don't want walls there to restrict movement. So I'm just going to restrict movement around the egress points. Now that I've walled those off, I'm going to also wall off this cargo. I want this only to go maybe up 6 feet. And I do not want to block sound. Oops, I should have done that for all of those. And then I'll copy that as well, and I'll just do some of the other cargo. Actually, that probably even wouldn't have vision be disrupted too much. Okay, now we've essentially got our scene. And I recommend running through your scene making sure that everything works. You know, especially if you've got any levels enabled pieces. And go up to the top of your lighthouse. Guardhouse. Once you've got sounds and things coming from the tavern. And if you ever see that a prefab is messed up like this, and I knew this one was going to be like this because somebody pointed out in Discord, this will be fixed in the next release, but you can see that was slightly off. And I can have players down below, I can have this player up above, we can see each other, and everything jumping across. Okay, so now I just built my own custom dock scene. You saw me use some of the elements from other sets. There's quite a bit in here to play with, but hopefully that gives you guys a good idea of, you know, how these things work and how you can make your own scenes. Oh, I did want to show you one more thing. Let's say I get the scene finally the way I want it. There's two ways that I can optimize, or two things I can do to optimize it. I can flatten this. So I can take the entire background image, the entire canvas, I can hide any animated tiles, and I can render just the floor tiles. And as long as I have this in Chrome or Chromium browser, I'm using the Brave browser here, I can put it at something like 50%, and I can say flatten tiles, and eventually it'll give me the option to take all of those tiles I just laid and make one single tile piece. It'll trim all the edges off of here, and it'll make it nice and neat for you guys to play with. Here's my new background. I'm going to now save it on my server because I want it to be in my Foundry world. Of course, I could have hidden all of these boats so that they didn't render along with everything else. That would be kind of one enhancement I could do to the process I just showed you. If you hide these, Tile Flattener from DF Architect has the ability to ignore them. And what I want to do is clone this current scene, and I just want to replace all the tiles that I had in there with a single background tile. And even though I clicked it once, it seems like nothing's happening. I'm going to wait because something is happening. If I click it multiple times, it will actually generate multiple versions of that. I don't want to do that. So here's the copy that I just made. And you notice I can't click any of these tiles anymore. They're now completely flattened and optimized for BTT. See, there's now 22 tiles, whereas before, this is another feature of DF Architect. It sort of tells you your inventory of things. There's 101 tiles. So we reduced our number of tiles by about 80%. So here you go. I'm zoomed in pretty close, and it's still pretty good detail. Most of your players would never be this close, but you can see that they all work. And then our overhead tiles, like on the street light and this roof, they were unaffected by our effort. But you see everything else is trimmed kind of perfectly, and you're ready to go for gameplay. So hopefully you guys like this, and let me know if you like me showing you how to build scenes, and if you have any more ideas for this system to enhance this even more, let me know. And in the meantime, have fun making your maps.